Hello everyone, Michigan Railfan 57 here. Over the summer of 2024, I went trackside a bunch and caught a whole lot of trains thanks to my scanner and an app I found that alerts me of any southbound trains in Plymouth. I caught so many trains I couldn't put them all in one video, it would be way too long, so I decided to split them up by each month. This month in particular, being August, I caught the most trains out of any month over the summer, as I didn't have to go on any trips or anything throughout basically the whole month. Since I caught so many trains this month, I'll be splitting the month up into two parts. This first half of August was probably the best time I've had railfanning yet, as I caught so many cool and rare trains. The first several clips I'll be featuring are all recorded on my phone, as the camera footage either got corrupted or I accidentally deleted it before downloading it into my computer. Anyways, on to the video. Starting off very strong, the first train I caught was M511 with a very neat surprise. The consist featured a normal GEVO, a YN2 AC44, and most notably RS8922, an EMD SW9 switcher, trailing third. This SW9 was originally built in the 1950s for the New York Central as their 8922, one of the first SW9s on the roster. According to some old photos and internet articles, it worked in Wyandotte for a while. I have no idea where it was going or where it ended up. The next train was a lot more regular. This was I-151 with a singular GEVO leading. Pretty normal for this train. Later in the day, I went to Plymouth again to try and catch some trains. This time, I set up at a parking lot just south of the Diamond and caught two trains. The first was a light power move heading to Rougemont Yard in Detroit. I'm guessing this was M267, which is a northbound autorack train to Detroit. It usually drops its cars at New Boston and Wayne, so it usually goes to Detroit as light power. The power was pretty interesting, as it consisted of a rare 5100 series AC44 on the point, a Tier 4 GEVO trailing second, and a YN2 AC44 trailing third. Like I said in the last video, most of the 5100 series AC44s are slated for rebuilding, and CSX only had 22 on the roster, so these units are pretty hard to come by now. The 5115 also features a great K5H horn and a very friendly crew. The next train to come by was SD40-3 number 4035, heading back to Wayne from North Yard, concluding my day in Plymouth. My final train of the day was back at the usual spot. This was L314 with usual power on the point. The next day, I caught I-151 with a Tier 4 Gevo leading solo. Later, I went out to catch a local going south with CSX 2680 leading. I hadn't seen this unit in a while, and this would unfortunately be the last time I did before I got transferred somewhere else. Later, I was in Plymouth again and ended up catching 4035 again, going back south. Finally, I caught CSX L302 rolling through Plymouth past the depot and the C&O Freight House. The next day, I was up early to run some errands with my family, and as we crossed the tracks, this caught my eye. A Lake State Railway train parked right in front of my usual spot, with a flat radiator Mack rebuild on the point. I was ecstatic, and all EMD lash-up parked right in front of me, begging for pictures. I was really hoping that the train would be there when I got back, and thankfully it was. Notice how the prime mover was left running on the Mack.
I'm just chilling here. Oh man, this idling. The train is split up down there, so they're gonna be here for a while.
As I was marveling at the sight of these two EMDs right in front of me, I noticed that M511 was making his way south through Plymouth, which meant that I would get to record a meet, something that rarely happens here. I recorded a lot more footage of the Mack, as well as a video of the engine running alongside the bike trail, but unfortunately the footage got corrupted. Anyways, M511 would soon arrive. I didn't see the power on the camera, so I had no idea what could be leading this train. Wow, just wow. A YN2 AC-44 on the point, and an SD-40-3 trailing second. The two competing AC traction engines of the 1990s meeting. Absolutely wonderful. This allowed for probably one of, if not the best shots I've gotten along the Saginaw Sub. I would catch one more train today with the Mack rebuild parked here, which was a local led by a GP40-2 numbered 6072, which would replace the 2680. It was great to see two EMDs meeting each other. Note how 6072 has a very quiet horn. As if the foaming never stops, the next day I caught M511 with a DC Gevo on the point that had a door from another engine and two fresh Union Pacific rebuilds trailing third and fourth. I had no idea what they were doing here, but I'm all in for some fresh foreign power. Funnily enough, this train ended up stopping over the crossing, which I did actually end up getting on camera. And shortly after he stopped, he would get underway again. I assume he was waiting on a signal. The next train I caught was on the 10th, and I had my friend Railfanning over to see if we could catch anything. We ended up barely making it in time to catch a southbound grain train. My shot ended up so backlit that it actually ended up looking really good. The power was two CM44s, which you probably couldn't even see because of how backlit my shot was. The next day, I caught M511 with another CM44 on the point and a GEVO as a mid-DPU. The next trains I caught were on the 12th. The first train I caught was M511 with a huge lash up of 5 GEVOs. Yes, all CSX GEVOs. Now you see why I go crazy for Mac rebuilds. CSX has too many GEVOs. Also, the train had the Pittsburgh and Lake Erie or the PNLE sticker unit trailing fourth. See if you can spot the sticker. It's very, and I mean very small. Later, I would make my way to Plymouth again and catch L303 for the last time this summer. Sorry about the shake when the engines passed. My camera wasn't tight enough on my tripod. I guess it just shows how powerful these things are. The final train I caught was in the evening. M268 was running, and it happened to have a solo flared Mac rebuild on the point. A great way to end today. The next trains I caught were on August 14th. The first train I caught that day was B522, making a somewhat rare daylight run. I saw another headlight in the distance as this train approached, so I made the sacrifice to have a backlit shot, but also see the power of the second train, unobstructed. B522 ended up having a BNSF H2-9 trailing today, something pretty unusual for it. Soon, the second train would arrive. It was B523, B522's northbound counterpart, with steel coils and empty slab cars. This train had normal power, but it was still cool to see the two steel trains on the Saginaw Sub meeting, since they both usually run at night. The next train I caught was M511, with another large lash-up of 4 engines. 3 of them were GEVOs, but this time, it seemed CSX was able to sneak at a Mack rebuild. If only it was leading. The next train I caught was pretty special. It was M268 with 2 unique DC GEVOs on the point. Leading the train was CSX 5288. Both of the units on this train have a rare Nathan K5HLB horn, the only units on CSX to have this horn. K5HLBs are not just famous because they're rare, but because they sound similar to Leslie horns. What luck that both the units with this horn on CSX were on the same train, and on the Saginaw Sub of all places. Finally, after he cleared, SD40-3 number 4035 came trundling north, heading for North Yard. The next day, August 15th, was arguably one of my best days of railfanning this year, if not the best. I went out for M511, but then he ended up stopping north of me, so I went back home. I had goals for today, as I had heard that CSX 1869, the Chesapeake and Ohio, or C&O Heritage Unit, was coming north on M510. The C&O Heritage Unit is one of my favorite heritage units on CSX, since the Saginaw Sub was at one point a C&O line, and it is one of the better looking CSX heritage units in my opinion. So, I would go out whenever I heard something coming, because the Plymouth Trains app was useless for catching northbound trains. Unfortunately, I didn't hear M511 start moving and miss the power, but I did see that B522 was following it. So I went out to catch the rest of M511 and hopefully B522 as well. While I was out there, B523 made a surprise appearance and met M511. Whoever switched that empty coil car and put it there, I hope they get a raise. It came by at the perfect time for me to see the power. After M511 and B523 cleared, I saw the headlight of B522 up north, and saw this headlight was placed on the top of the cab, which meant one thing: a Mack rebuild was leading this train. Before he came by, another train came north. I had thought this was M510 with the C&O unit at first, but it was just SD40-3 number 4035 heading up to North Yard. After he cleared, B522 got underway again, and I got to see its flat radiator Mack rebuild announcing its passage. The horn on this engine was really loud and sounded great, as most Macks do. After he cleared, there wasn't any trains for a few hours and no sign of M510 or the C&O unit, so I went back home and took a break. Around 1 p.m., I-151 finally made his way into Plymouth, so I went out again to catch it. Leading the train was CM44AH number 7023 with another great K5LA. Notice how the train was on the slow track like B522 was earlier. So remember I-151 being on the slow track? Well, it was for a reason, as I-151 soon stopped. Now, I didn't have a problem with stopped trains lately, but now I was on the wrong side of the tracks for it to stop. In basic terms, I was trapped, and I couldn't go home until this train cleared. I stood there for a couple minutes pondering the situation until I had a realization. I-151 almost never stops, as it's a priority train. My brain soon came to the conclusion that he must be waiting for another train. Turns out, I was right, as I looked at the signals, and I saw there was a low green, which meant something was coming. I waited for a good 30 minutes and saw a light in the distance. Then, I started getting excited, as I knew this train might be M510 with the C&O unit. All I could do was wait. Finally, the train came, and I finally got my answer. I was amazed. I had finally managed to catch a CSX Heritage unit leading a train, and it was one of the better looking ones too. Thankfully, after M510 cleared, I-151 got moving again, and I wasn't trapped at the railroad tracks for any longer. However, I did catch one last train today, and it was L313 with its usual consist. What a time this was. Since I didn't really go on any vacations during this part of August, I was able to catch a lot more trains, and this was only the first half of it. From catching rare horns to EMDs, train meets, and even a heritage unit, and lots more, this was certainly a time to remember, and the month wasn't even over yet. Thank you all for watching. This is Michigan Railfan 57 signing off. Have a great day.